DeadRails, a game we all loved, has been falling apart. From having 1 million players constantly to barely peaking 100,000, this game has gone on a 90% decline. Now, to be fair, it wasn't always like this. So that being said, let's take a look at why this happened. I present to you the rise and fall of DeadRails. Let's start from where it all began. January 1st, 2025. DeadRails was released to the Roblox platform. The game promised a simple yet enjoyable game concept where you travel on a train and find stuff on the way. Whether it was unique mobs or even cooler structures, this game had some very special features for all players to find out about. That being said, at the time of DeadRails releasing, a train survival game on Roblox was unheard of, honestly. I mean, it was such a simple concept, yet it was never well executed, and that's why we never heard about it. And you see, the creators of DeadRails saw this as an opportunity. I mean, this game was already a thing on Steam, believe it or not, where you had a game called DeadRails, coincidentally, in which you'd kill zombies and refuel your train. Moreover, what made DeadRails even better was its high stakes. I mean, in this game, if you died, that would be it, unless you were on a team, of course, in which you could get revived with a bandage, but the high stakes always existed, especially during the night. And don't get me started on the nightmare mode in DeadRails, with each night having different features such as more mobs, lightning, and even much more. But that's not all. This was one of the very few games which, huge props to the developers by the way, is not pay to win, even till this day, unlike some games I know. Anyways, let's take a brief moment to talk about the DeadRails art style, which gave the game a lot of life. You see, a lot of DeadRails assets were from the Roblox toolbox, meaning for the most part, all of these assets were not custom made. Look, in the most simplest terms, the models of this game were so popular and so widely used, many Roblox players resonated with this art style. A simple game that would just be enjoyable, right? So that being said, the simple art style, no overbearing graphics, and the relaxing vibe, I mean, this game had everything, or so we thought. You see, this game, even though it seemed as a good feature for the developers at the time to add stuff from the Roblox toolbox, this would prove to be the very reason it would fail. And as for a little snippet, the developers unfortunately had a very unclear idea about how to go about this game, and this is because their developing experience was very limited, and it showed. However, we'll talk about this more later. Anyways, that being said, the game at its very core was a simple survival game that anyone could relax and play for a minimum of 30 minutes. Because you see, you had many ways to go about this game, whether it was just to rush to the very end and barricade yourself and pray nothing breaks in, or loot every structure and get guns to kill everything. The choice was really yours. That being said, let's move on to what made this game truly popular, which was, believe it or not, social media. Now, I know that sounds lame, but just hear me out. The game had some very funny moments. I mean, you guys have all seen the crazy glitches on YouTube Shorts, or even the viral trends. Like, I personally remember a trend called Money Talks, in which you try to coat your train in all gold. Now, anyways, this trend was almost 5 months ago, so it's just crazy to think about. Now, anyways, that being said, let's move on to the glitches section. You see, as I previously mentioned, these developers unfortunately did not have a lot of experience making games. And I know it is bad again in most cases, but in this case, it became a double-edged sword. Glitches became an integral part of the DeadRails experience. Whether it was using glitches to get into the bank or using the flying horse glitch to speedrun, there's a glitch for almost everything. Now, of course, in hindsight, this was one of the reasons that the game led to its downfall, but it is still crazy to see how the game's poor development led to the game actually becoming popular. Now, moreover, these YouTube clips gave DeadRails a great initial boost. I mean, as someone who plays games, I just want a challenge, and that's where the trends came in. Whether it was a passive run in DeadRails, more on this later, or coating your train in all gold, there were many things to do in this game, so of course many players tried replicating these trends and uploading them, or just doing them fun. But that's not all. You see, DeadRails not only had player-made challenges, but it also had some in-game features. For example, there's a nightmare mode, which was obviously a nightmare to win, especially solo, but that's not all. There were also different badges you could get, whether that was beating DeadRails without a train or not killing anything. There was a lot of different things you could do to make your game harder, so the possibilities were endless. Anyways, these two features of course helped the game. However, I purposefully left out one feature of DeadRails that helped out a lot, and that was the accessibility. Now, what does that mean? Well, let me put it this way. Almost every game on Roblox that you play has some form of game passes. You see, DeadRails had this at the most minimal point that it could be at, and even if there was things to buy in this game, they were incredibly cheap. Like, I'm talking 100 Robux level cheap. So of course, this game was very welcoming, and again, don't get it twisted, this game was a genuine gen on the platform platform because of this, because at the time, finding a decent game that isn't filled with monetization, as we all know, is rare, and it is still even to this point. That being said, the game's funny moments on YouTube, whether it was crazy glitches or challenges combined with easy to play and fair game features, the game was primed to explode, with the game hitting 300,000 active players in no joke 2 months after it releasing, which is unheard of most Roblox games. This leads us on to early March. The game hits 100 million visits. Now, isn't that just insane? And let's just say we made the right person popular, because Rico, which is the head developer, made an announcement shortly after, which at least in my opinion was one of the best things a developer could have ever said, period. And that was that he would never sell the game out. And it's pretty funny because at the time, Big Games was hinting at it that they wanted the game. So these developers showed how firm they were, and the community loved it, and again, it showed. I mean, the game just kept on rising. Anyways, you see, at this point, the game was still new. Everyone still had to try it and do everything the game had to offer. The new player influx was honestly huge, and this led to the game constantly rising, hitting 500,000 active players at the end of March due to a major content update which added the Sterling Mines. Now, this is long ago now, but I mean, the players loved it and it showed, because on March 28th, the game hit a whopping 735,000 active players, unheard of from most Roblox games and games in general, putting it as a definite pick of at least the top 10 Roblox games of 2025. Now, at this point, you see things were going good, but the first few cracks of this game started to show, which was, again, as simple as it sounds, the game was boring. Now, I know that sounds very simple, so let's take a look at this issue deeper. You see, at the time, DeadRails of course had its badges, it had the glitches, it had everything, but players were getting slightly bored. And I say slightly because at this point, for about in the span of 10 days, the player count dropped exponentially, almost 50% down from its previous highs. Now, don't get me wrong, all games have periods where they don't perform well, but this was different. You see, this game was lacking direction. These developers, primarily due to their ill experience, had no idea what to do with this popularity, and I mean, it showed. For example, there was little to no communication on what was going on in the background, but it was fine because the community was loyal, and Rico, the head developer, knew this, so he tried his best showing out, and that's exactly what he did on April 19th, with the game hitting 1.2 million players, which for some perspective puts it on par with some of the most iconic games that we all know. And I mean, honestly, DeadRails deserved this spot. Even though it was a simple game, it was a people's game. Everyone enjoyed it, especially with this new update, which was one of the few times they added a limited time mode featuring an Easter bunny. And look, I don't know, for me personally, I have my own opinions, but this somehow worked in the game's feature, bringing in a ton of new players back, as well as a handful amount of new players. You see, this event was simple. You'd look up and I guess you just kill this Easter bunny, right? Nothing crazy, but this actually was the peak of Roblox gaming, a limited time event on a free-to-play game that is very accessible. I mean, everyone loved it, but you see, everything that once was becomes something that once is. So let's talk about where it all went wrong, starting from the very day of the Easter update. Now listen man, the Easter update was good, but you see, it was too good. Like I said previously, it was the pinnacle of DeadRails, but that was exactly the issue. They set a standard and they had to keep it up, and well, what did they do? Well, to be honest with you, for a whole month, complete radio silence. Well, kind of. You see, in the month of May, they added a new update known as, I guess, the Liquid update, and in all honesty, this was really out of place. Anyways, in this update, they added pretty much potion crafting in the game, in which different type of liquids, whether it was blood, milk, or even rainwater, they would all give you certain buffs such as speed, more damage, and stuff of that nature. Now, me personally, I believe that this did cause a big part of the player base to become uninterested because, like I said previously, it was just out of place. It had no business being in the game, at least at this time. Additionally, before this, there was a smaller update in which players could buy different trains. For example, there was a golden train or even an armored train, and this was in early June, and let's just say players did not like this either, because simply put, these trains were useless and players did not feel like grinding for it, right? And thus, in just a month alone, DeadRails lost 50% of its player base, or in other terms, 500,000 players. These days, such a big drop is only seen by titles that do something horribly wrong. So just what happened? Well, let's zoom in on this issue. You see, DeadRails is a very simple game, and everyone knows this, but what people fail to realize is that DeadRails, even though it's a simple game, it has literally no endgame content. I mean, for the most part, you reach the end, do a couple of challenges, whether they are in-game badges or popular trends, and that's it. That's the game. The game had no depth, or in other words, the very reason DeadRails got popular was the reason that it was falling off. It was too simple. Now, let's calm down for a second. Sure, losing 500,000 players is a lot, but most games dream about these numbers, and regardless, it did have around 300,000 players on average, and so there was still a chance for the game to be alive again, or so we thought. Enter early June. Again, no developer communication from the middle of May to June, but regardless, this update did have some good adds. New classes like the President, the Hunter, and some new items like bear traps. Now, before I continue on, I just want to say that it's pretty interesting how the game has bear traps for a game that doesn't have any bears. But anyways, at this point, lots of players had already moved on, right? And to what, you may ask? Well, obviously the most popular game right now, Grow a Garden. Now, you see, Grow a Garden was slowly seeping its way into popularity, and let's just say it was backed by some big names. Many of you guys know Jandel, but I'm gonna be honest, Jandel is much more than meets the eye. You see, Jandel is more than a developer, he's a businessman, and he knows how to run a game well, especially when it gains popularity. Whether it was admin abuse events or a very strong and talented team, Jandel had the full arsenal, and DeadRails had no sort of defense whatsoever. Grow a Garden saw this opportunity and they decided to capitalize on it. And I mean, on DeadRails' side, they were taking their sweet time when Grow a Garden was doing weekly updates, right? And in June alone, DeadRails lost again 50% of its initial player base, nearly 70% down from its all-time high. Something was wrong, and everyone knew it at this point, but no one wanted to speak about it, mainly because no one would listen, right? And unfortunately, that was right. After no communication for a while, the announcement that would end DeadRails was there. They decided to shift away from their 2-week update schedule and instead take their time, mainly due to the fact that they thought their updates were lacking in quality. Now, let's step back for a second. Sure, this game was falling and almost everyone knew it, but you know what wasn't? The two-man studio's integrity. So huge props to these guys for not selling out, and even if it led to the game's downfall, right? Because, you know, honestly, this would have happened both ways. I mean, we have a Dusty Trip, a Grow a Garden, all of these became pay to win. Anywho, from mid-July, the game constantly went off the rails. From 200,000 players, it went to 100,000, then sub 100, and now it just keeps going lower. No updates, no new information, just a couple thousand loyal players clinging onto the game that they loved most. And that leads us on to today. From the July announcement, some very small updates have happened. DeadRails has lost its charm, in all honesty. Everyone has moved on. Whether it's a new survival game such as the 99 Nights in the Forest or Grow a Garden, DeadRails slowly went down a steep cliff, being forgotten in the pile of many forgotten games that we have on Roblox. And honestly, DeadRails has totally seen it all, from gaining 1.2 million players in less than a couple months to losing them in less than that. This game went through it all. Now again, I just want to point out that this story wasn't just about a game getting mismanaged, but integrity as well. Even though the game was falling apart and these developers had no idea what they were doing, they still stood on all 10 toes and made sure to develop to the very end, and they are still doing that right now with a new team that's still trying to innovate the game to a degree with some new buildings and trains, so there still is content to check out. So if you haven't played it for a while, just a little visit wouldn't hurt. Anyways, chat, that's the end of this video. I know it's been a while, I just don't make the videos that often anymore. Anyways, subscribe, watch other videos, bye.